Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Tawana Bain, who's the CEO of American Clean Resources Group, who are an environmental sustainability development platform at the forefront of renewable and environmental development in the United States through comprehensive resource management and the processing of precious metals and minerals in a carbon neutral and environmentally safe manner, dedicated to revelation of the new American supply chain by aiming to deliver with net zero environmental impacts. Tawana is a leading marketing strategist and visionary, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the company and how they're progressing. And they're obviously leading the way in providing sustainable solutions for America's resource independence. So that's welcome, Tawana, to the podcast. How you doing, Tawana?
I'm well, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate your time as well. So as we always start these podcasts off, just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your background and your career up to sort of present day, so our audience knows a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background before we start speaking and also start getting to know a little bit about American Clean Resources.
Sure. So I have had quite an interesting journey, Rob, as I was sharing with you prior to us going live with the podcast. Spent a little bit of time in France. And that was due to, I was studying French as my major, and actually French was my minor and computer science was my major. And I've always been like this left brain, right brain girl. But I tell you what, like computer science was killing me there towards the end, and I really fell in love with French. And so I ended up switching my majors, which was not like a very popular thing to do, to go from having, a BA in the arts and then, or sciences and then flipping to the arts. But I really had an affinity for learning the language. And I also learned that there's a lot of respect for Americans that take the time to get to know a second language. And so, once I finished school, my vision, or I guess at the time, I thought I was going to become like the CIO, of a French speaking company. Only to realize that, in the real world, I'm American and my French wasn't as great, as some natives. And so I ended up getting into the sales and marketing space. And I spent quite a bit of time, taking on sales and marketing jobs until launching my own business. I want to say maybe in the early 2000s. And one of my very first clients happened to be an engineering firm. They used to go by the name Fuller Mossberger Scott and May. They ended up being acquired by Stantec, publicly traded company, and they had a division. What actually attracted them to FMSM, Fuller Mossberger Scott and May, was their stream restoration initiatives. And so I was hired on because of my marketing prowess to help launch and really refine the strategy around their river restoration software, which was an application that helped automate the stream design process for impaired streams. And I had the luxury at the time, did not realize what a privilege it was, to work with this tool that was based off of the Dave Roskin methodology, and how you ensure that an impaired stream is designed back to its natural state. And so I spent a lot of time, with the, it wasn't the U.S. Forest Service, it was the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and just really more on the backside of impairing, repairing streams to their natural habitat. And so I find it really interesting that fast forward today, I'm doing something very similar, except I'm doing it with mining and tailings. But in between, being an environmental consultant, which not just in the stream restoration space, but it also spilled over into stormwater as well. doing various things around technical writing for consent decrees or community engagement around various education and public policy with stormwater runoff control. I spent a lot of time understanding what a lack of diversity participation was in the environmental space. And so my business kind of morphed. So we were doing a lot in the environmental sustainability side, but we were also doing a lot around the equity and inclusion side and trying to propel women and minorities into various industries where they lacked representation. So, I don't believe in coincidences in life. And so the fact that, I had been tapped and looked at to run this organization, everything culminating from leading stream restoration strategy to looking for ways to increase diversity in other industries, I landed in an industry where it absolutely needed both. And so I'm extremely excited to serve as the CEO of American Clean Resources Group and to talk a little bit more with you today about what we're doing and how we hope to rebuild our country while we clean it up.
That's great. Just wondering, just tell us about American Clean Resources Group, a little bit about the company and its mission.
Sure. Our mission really is to, as I mentioned, rebuild America while cleaning America. We have three pillars, that is clean air, clean water, and clean land. And many people oftentimes think of us as just a mining company, but we're really not. We are an environmental sustainability platform with the mission of all of the hundreds of millions of tailings that have been placed on public and private lands through the mining process to become self-reliant again on our own minerals and metals and begin cleaning up and extracting the minerals and metals that are in them, and specifically the assets that we have. Our primary metals are gold and silver, secondary are tungsten and manganese. And so we just hope to extract what's valuable, reintroduce it into the American supply chain. And by doing that, we improve air quality in our land and water. But we're also growing both vertically and horizontally by acquiring companies that have advanced technology in the water purification space and or space for stormwater as well. And so at the end of the day, what we really, really hope to accomplish is to tackle climate change while also doing something innovative with reprocessing these tailings, not using the traditional fossil fuel that's used in mining, but actually renewable energy.
In February, you were appointed the CEO and more recently became a member of the board. I suppose what attracted you to the company initially, and what do you think is unique about what you bring to our mining industry?
Sure. So I was actually appointed last year in September as CEO, and just earlier this year, I was actually appointed as chairwoman of the board. And what attracted me, well, to be honest, for the first 4 or 5 years, when this conversation was taking place, I wasn't quite sure that it was something that I was a good candidate for, because I didn't fully understand it in full transparency. And as I really began to dig into their mission to clean up the environment, based on what I want to say is an oversight that took place when we passed the Bevel Amendment Act that allowed this waste to be dumped. Albeit, I understand why. Many people probably thought that we were going to bankrupt the mining industry, who really didn't have best practices set up for properly discarding of the waste. But when I began to really look at the impact of one, how much we were importing in from other countries, two, the fact that this waste was sitting on public and private lands and what it was doing to the environment, and knowing and understanding my visionary capabilities as well as my prowess around marketing strategy and just a lot of the experience that I had in the environmental space, and then add to that the lack of diversity in the industry, I really felt that there was just no one better suited for the role. In America, oftentimes especially in the environmental space, I was always extremely welcome. There was no lack of rejection, or there was no rejection, to me being involved or having an interest. But my peers and my colleagues really struggled to find individuals who were comfortable in their skin in this space, who understood this space, and that had an interest in this space. And quite frankly, I hit all those prongs. So it made sense to me. I did the work, I did the research. And what I tell my team all the time is, I'm the CEO. I have no desire to be an expert metallurgist or an expert engineer, right? My job is to grow the business, to understand the market, to make us profitable, and to get the job done. And so I think the other reason why, oftentimes you don't have people in the minority space that might want to enter the industry is that they might think that they have to know it all. And you don't, right? You absolutely don't. You have to surround yourself with really good people, smart people. Certainly you have to have an idea of what the heck's going on around you, but you have to lead the organization and not be in the weeds.
How big is the need to obviously clean up mining tailings? Obviously, it's a big issue with tailings in our industry globally around the world. So, how big is it? And obviously, from what you see and what you've been involved in, how big is it? Obviously, the need to clean up these tailings.
I mean, it's enormous. I wish I had, Rob, for you a map where I could show where the tailings are in America. And it is massive. Like the red dots that we use to demonstrate how big the problem is, the map might as well bleed red. And so, and that is especially on the western side of the United States. And so we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of tons. So, the best way that I could probably explain it to a fifth grader on how serious, the issue is driving out west. Oftentimes, as I took in the beauty of the scenery, and I would point and say, wow, look at that mountain. And for, one of my engineers or project managers to say, that's not a mountain, those are tailings. That's a problem. That's a problem in the United States. And it's a problem that I want all of us to have a fire in our belly. Very much like we went through the phase of cleaning up plastic and other materials that we felt could be better discarded or recycled. I think that we should have the same affinity for what really makes our global economy churn. And that's mining. And then when you think about the fact that 90% of the energy has already been expended in the original mining process, why not clean up what we have, be in control again of the metals and minerals that we already have, and then also have the byproduct of clean air, clean water, and clean land. To me, it just makes sense. And sometimes it's about working smarter now.
I understand that you have a project called Miller. I wonder if you can just tell our audience a little bit about that, what stage you're at, and why it's important.
Sure. So Miller's is a project out in Tonopah, Nevada, where we own 1,200 acres outright, pre-permitted land. Former Senator Harry Reid wrote up, there's 17 of these into legislation. I might be off by a number or two, but I would say about 17. And what makes our site so valuable, they've been deemed solar energy zones, is that we have both a power substation on the property and the only available water rights, I want to say within a 15-mile radius. And so when you think about all of the land that surrounds the Tonopah or the Miller site, there's probably about 16,000 acres of BLM land. And so the opportunity to get started on what we control outright and having a project of critical mass or land of critical mass that we can expand into is substantial. And so where we currently are with Miller's right now is we have made the decision. There's been a number of acquisitions that we have been looking at, but we have made the decision to focus specifically on Miller's to get started. We have a number of assessments that have been done to value out the assets that are in the tailings on that property. And we have officially, which I know we'll talk about here in just a moment, we've launched a board of advisors, and our first aim with millers, because my job is to move this project from development to operational stage. And we've surrounded ourselves with what we like to think a lot of thought leaders and experts to help us do that, as we are identifying and whittling down into a pilot. And so we just kicked off an advisory board meeting a couple of weeks ago. We have narrowed down some opportunities that we've set our sights on, but we are really leaning on our board of advisors to help guide us through that process. So the first thing that you'll see coming out of Millers is a project this year that has been determined by not just our team, but in collaboration with our advisory team. And so that we hope to hit the ground running later this year. And, it'll be somewhere in the realm of our water assets that we have as well, and or the mill that currently sits on the property. So we have a mill that has not been operating, and there's been a lot of back and forth on whether we want to retrofit that mill or whether we want to build a new mill. But regardless of which way we go, part of our pilot is identifying a corporate client that will, take the metals off of our hands, basically become a buyer before we, spend the money to either retrofit or build. But at any rate, we are in the process of narrowing down a pilot. Again, it'll fall somewhere in the realm of the mill or our water asset. And, we hope that by generating some, excitement and some activity around the Miller site, that we see a lot of momentum as it relates to the industry and other players coming along to join the team to help us with our efforts.
Why don't you just tell us about your dedication to intentional diversity and why DEI is it obviously important to you, important to the company and its pipeline?
Sure. My commitment runs deep. I mean, obviously, as a Black female in this space, controlling one of the largest projects, it's there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, right? So if we as a country truly believe in meritocracy, something like this project needs to be successful, right? Because it's not a scenario where I don't have the experience, I don't have the background, I don't have the assets, right? It's we all everything is perfectly aligned. And what I can say is that my peers have been tremendously supportive in helping make this successful. And I want to leave the type of mark that has other entrepreneurs or those or engineers, whatever you might have, that are interested in the mining or the renewable space to feel extremely confident to really exercise their gifts and put their best foot forward. And so, this is one of those opportunities that I believe that we as a country across the board will be extremely proud of. It won't just be Black, it'll be white, it'll be all of us. Because I understand the sore point of people that don't have the skill sets or don't have the talent being placed in positions and operating in a mediocre fashion. But that's not what this is. And so I am excited about it and I'm committed to it because I know that there's a lot more Tawana Bains out there. And the reality is them seeing that DE&I isn't something that people don't want. It's that they don't want subpar talent, right? They don't want to just check a box. And so demonstrating our success, and it happens to be a Black female, I do believe that it will begin to change the narrative and the understanding about what people really mean when they say, let's not just, use D&I to check a box, but let's find the best of the best. And I believe that I'm the best, and I believe that this is one of the best projects out here. And I hope that there will be others that follow suit that feel really confident that they will garner the support both from a national, local, and maybe even international level with whatever their vision is.
I noticed you recently announced, obviously, the formation of the Environmental Sustainability Board. Why did you form it? And why are the people you appointed appropriate industry leaders for your company? And lastly, I know it's a few questions. And what the next steps for how this is going to this distinguished board will assist the company in its efforts?
Sure. Well, Rob, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I don't know it all. I don't claim to, I don't pretend to. And any smart CEO understands that you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and that are well connected. And at the end of the day, we are still, right, we're moving from dev to ops. And so we also are still raising as well. And so I need people that know people. I need people that know me intimately. If they're going to put their name and their reputation, years of experience on the line, and ask for people to get behind this project, they need to get to know who I am. So I've made the decision to establish an advisory board, to create a board of peers that understand me intimately, I understand them intimately, and that they are willing to open up their Rolodex, and or their wallets for the work that we're doing. And I really do believe that we have identified some really leading people to help do that. And this also kind of sets the pace for me because part of my role is also to establish my board of directors, right? So I do believe in crawling before I walk. And so this is an opportunity to execute at a high level with seasoned, industry professionals to prepare me. I'm sure I might bump my head a couple of times. I've already received a few phone calls with some, continuous improvement. And that's what it's about, right? And so I'm when I'm ready to set the table for my board of directors, I believe that the rigorous challenges that are presented to me by my advisory board will prepare me for that time.
And can you tell us a little bit about the members of the board?
Sure, sure. So we have people that span, heading up the American Institute of Geology. We have people in finance. We have representation from the Colorado School of Mines, Dr. Priscilla Nelson. We have entrepreneurs that are also launching in the mining space, from whether it's software or whether it's green technologies that are had in milling. We have an extreme diverse set of candidates that really do cover a good gamut of what we're doing. I would say if there was any gaps currently in our advisory board, and it's something that we're aware of and we're working towards with the new federal tax credits that have come out under the Inflation Reduction Act, we're looking for people that have strong understanding in that space. We do know that it's fluid and it's moving day by day, but that is probably the only area where I am still looking to firm up expertise.
In March, you announced a well water purchase agreement with the road and highway builders. Why is that important? And also, what makes your access to water on your property unique? And what type of opportunities does it offer businesses and stakeholders in Nevada to those that can access across the US?
Sure. Well, it's for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, when you are, moving from development stage to operations, anytime that you can demonstrate revenue, active revenue, that is a nod in the right direction for your shareholders and for those that are watching what you're doing. Secondly, this property prior to me stepping in as the CEO of ACRG has been dormant. And so it's important for me to bring that property online and that we're active. And so that we can maintain those water rights. So that was for me a coup, to be able to demonstrate that we are active, we are planning big things on that property, and even though it's not a massive contract, demonstrating that this was important to us and that we could actually execute on that, I think is extremely important. As it relates to what's unique, I think the most important thing is, having the only available water rights within the 15-mile radius is why the highway control, why they came to us. They needed water for their project. And there are others within that vicinity that we hope will come to us to tap into those water resources as well. But we also have set our sights to build, one of the largest industrial renewable parks in the country. And so you need water in order to build. And then taking that a step further, we want to see the city of Millers reincorporated. It used to be a flourishing city at one point. Now it's a ghost town. And without water and power, that's just an uphill battle. So
there's been discussion about obviously the importance of transferring federal tax credits. How is the company showing its commitment to this initiative? And how will it obviously benefit investors?
As I mentioned earlier, it's fluid, it changes day by day. But, our project is over a $3 billion build out. And so with that, that puts us in control of about a billion and a billion and a half. And for those that don't have dividend income that are investing, I mean, that's real cash, that they're able to submit with when they're filing their taxes. So, outside of investors, there's so many things that are happening with like nonprofits, and they've got this new thing called direct pay because nonprofits may not pay tax, but they can benefit from those tax credits by being able to receive direct pay or cash for holding those tax credits. And what that essentially means is now it's a new funding mechanism. It's a new funding mechanism for nonprofits. It is a new tax incentive for investors. I think I saw an article here recently where Travis Kelce, the guy dating Taylor Swift, funded a movie project with renewable energy tax credits. I mean, that would have been unheard of. So what they've essentially done is democratize federal tax credits. And for us, I feel like the sky is the limit on the various things that we can fund, those that are looking for, new investments, but also, a double benefit by the tax credits. It certainly is appealing. And again, as I mentioned, it's fluid. We're learning day by day. But the fact that we control the amount that we do, I think, is what is extremely attractive, not just for investors, but for organizations across the country that are looking for creative ways to tap into them as well.
Not so long ago, American Clean Resources Group acquired SWIS, SWIS Community, an environmental water technology company. What was the importance of that? And does the company plan to do sort of more acquisitions in the near future? And if so, what kind of companies or industries would you be looking at?
Sure. I will say that SWIS is the initial transaction in our water treatment division. So there are other companies that we're eyeing. I can't really speak to those just yet. They have not yet been disclosed. However, they were our first. And in the storm water and surface water runoff, there are important issues today. And one of the items of significant importance to meet EPA standards and regulation. And so our commitment to SWIS, and not to mention, I'm based in Kentucky, although we're headquartered out of Lakewood, Colorado. They just so happen to also be in the state of Kentucky. So we just recently received our first purchase order under SWIS, and I hope that our success in catapulting a company that will help residents be alerted and therefore safe from any sort of toxic drinking water conditions. I hope that our success in that space will lead to more success with other water acquisitions that we're looking to make. But for those that are not as familiar, maybe with stormwater, I know that we're on a mining platform, but essentially think of the, SWIS's product much like a fire alarm in a home. It is a device that alerts you or alarms you when drinking water is unsafe to consume and or bathe in, and or when you need to shut off certain devices or appliances in your home that consume or use water when there's a storm, so that we can prevent any sort of runoff.
And lastly, what's the outlook for American Clean Resources Group sort of over the next 6 to 12 months?
So what we're looking at right now is we are gunning for uplisting on the New York Stock Exchange. And as I mentioned, we are in the process of narrowing down and identifying a pilot that we can work on with our current advisory board. If I had my druthers, Rob, one of the other things that I'd really like to see is I'd like to see us narrow down, and also in the state that I live in, which is now my hometown, we call Kentucky the Bluegrass. I would also like to have a hand in bringing a real project of critical mass to Kentucky and helping to turn the bluegrass green. So hopefully some of the pilots that we're doing will allow me to, have some participation here in the state of Kentucky as well.
Tawana, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast, telling us about American Clean Resources Group and all the exciting things that you've achieved so far. And obviously wish you well for the remainder of the year, going into next year, and putting more and further plans in place. If our audience who are around the world, if they want to get in contact with yourself, if they want to follow your story and the company's progress, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
Sure. Currently, we are on all channels. I will tell you, we are a team that has been mobilizing. So social media has not been our top priority, but you can connect with us on all those platforms. And once we begin to build out our marketing team, you'll see more activity. But we are on LinkedIn. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. But of course, you can also find out a lot about what we're doing by staying tuned to our website, which is ACRGincorp.com. That's ACRGINCORP.com.
We'll include those in the show notes accompanying this podcast, so for easy access. So, as I said, wish you well for the remainder of the year, and hope you achieve all your objectives. It seems obviously you've come quite far in what you've done to date. So, wish you well for the future.
I really appreciate that, Robin. Again, thank you for having me on to share our story.
No worries. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. And obviously, this episode that doesn't necessarily you have to share it just in North America. Please share these episodes far and wide. There'll be other companies doing similar things in other countries, and hopefully they can learn some of the things that Tawana's just explained. So appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.